Hey, Art Arbor community. Welcome back to Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast for episode 17. And we will be continuing on with our new series on optimizing the modern artist. And I'll turn it over to my co host and co moderator, Andrew Arden-Witter, here to introduce our guests.
Our guests, yeah. We actually have two guests today on the same monitor here, cuddling. And it's a super great honor to have brought on a wonderful guest today, Scott Pellegrom. He's a perfect fit for going down this wonderful series we have of what it really means to be a modern artist, to have your brand optimized. And he's a perfect guest to talk about art-life balance. And I have known Scotty now for almost probably going on 10 years, and he's incredible drum virtuoso, but he's really adopted the name of the barefoot drummer for the last 10 years. And it's his philosophy on life, on drums, is incredibly inspiring. And so without further ado, we welcome Scotty and his wonderful dog, Pegasus.
Yeah, Pegasus. Phoenix is over here, but we have the hardwood floor, and he's like the sunbather, Pegasus is, and then the swimmer and cold plunger is Phoenix. So I have a heated blanket on for him, and then I have the fan on the floor for Phoenix. So it's my
Fire
yin
and
and
ice.
yang. Yeah, fire and ice, my yin and yang. But yeah, well, hey
Yeah.
guys, it's nice to be here. I've been following you guys a bit. I saw you did an episode with one of my favorite humans, Caleb Elzinga.
Yeah.
And that I will probably bring him up at some point in time in this conversation because he is the perfect example of someone who's just awesome.
Mm.
Everything he's just awesome to be around. So it was really cool to see that he was on the show,
Mhm.
and I was giving it a good listen. So I'm excited to see what we delve into today.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Jake, do you want to give a little more kind of context to what is it? What's this art life work balance that we're kind of talking about?
And I think there's a few different ways we could approach it, but I think the one that's always on the forefront for people is with artists. I feel like it's not just work-life balance that most people have, but it's what we're calling art work-life balance, where you have your life, which would just be your, running your errands and doing your things that we have to do. And then for a lot of people, it's work where they have some 9 to 5. They have something that they have to do to, keep a roof over their head, so to speak. And then finding time to have that creative outlet, whether it's playing gigs in the 5 to 9 at night or just, you know, in your studio at home recording or painting or sculpting or whatever it comes down to as being an artist. You have to find that additional time for most people, or for people that have to balance that. There's of course some, really fortunate individuals that, that is their work and they just have to balance that with their life. But I feel like a lot of artists or a lot of people that just enjoy art have to find that balance, and everyone approaches it a different way, but it's just another thing that you have to put into that balance besides, most people that just go to work and come home and they don't do anything after that.
Leisure.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel, I mean, I'm just going to interject here off the bat before we're really, really rolling. Um, there's so much with all of that to be said that you can really compartmentalize each thing. Like the first thing that stuck out to me is when you mentioned, there's a 9 to 5, there's a 5 to 9, there's being an artist, there's, making your living wages so you can live and also be an artist. And how do you really use your time? Um, to its fullest. And the first thing that comes up to me is running errands. Running
Mm.
errands is one of my most favorite things on earth. I have my two pups with me and they'll hop in and I'll think, oh, there's an artist I'm tracking with next week. I want to get their vibe because they mentioned these artists I should check out. So I can make a playlist, hop in and run errands and listen to the vibe of what this artist might want to be produced. Or oh, that's right. I have a gig last minute tonight. I'm going to make a playlist of all the stuff I have no idea about. I'm just going to put it on repeats while I'm running errands, even bringing the earbuds into Meijer or Aldi or Costco to get my groceries. running errands is like my saving grace because I can get so much work done. And it is also one of those things where it's mindful by being mindless because you have to run errands, you have a list of things to do. But in that journey of finishing those tasks, you can learn an album, you can learn a song, you can talk to AI for a bit and get your planning for the week or the
Mhm.
month, which, is a whole new thing. So I feel like you have to be an opportunivore with each moment that you have. Because
Mm.
if you're an artist, in the most positive, optimistic way I can say this, you're mentally ill, you are an addict. Because we do things for the sake of art that does not make sense. If you took
Mm.
away for most of us
Mm.
that we're a drummer or a visual artist or amazing photographer, and you saw the way we lived or the money we make at times, you'd be like, you are nuts. What are you on? What are you doing? And it's like, for the sake of art, we are willing to put our mind, body, and soul and our finances through absolute hell. So
Mm.
thinking about
Mhm.
those precious moments of being able to run errands and how you can use that to your fullest to get new ideas, get inspiration, do your homework, turn on a podcast or a book to get your juices flowing, then you're always in that creative moment, you're always absorbing, and you're always a sponge, even in your, potentially mundane task of going to the post office, going to Staples, going to Meijer, stopping at the bank, going to get a prescription or something. So
Mhm.
that right there, one little nugget of just running errands is something I could talk about for the rest of this, podcast.
Yeah.
And that's just one aspect. So
Mhm.
yeah, when we talk about making your money, music for our art, or music for a living versus music for a life, art for a living, art for a life, those things can be very separate and also merged, to the point where you're not sure which is which.
Mm. Yeah, go ahead, Jake. What was that?
I was just gonna say I definitely relate to that. Making
Mm.
those seemingly mindless moments more mindful. Like,
Mm.
it depends on what your role is if in a 9 to 5. But as someone who has a desk job, a lot of times I find myself listening to podcasts, listening to new music, and really taking advantage of that time because a lot of stuff I do doesn't necessarily require that I'm fully engaged. Like if I was in a meeting or something like that, I can't be doing that. But
Mhm.
if I'm just
Right.
updating some reports, sending some emails, like having that on the background definitely benefits me in my personal growth a lot.
Mhm.
So same thing with running errands, or I can think of just like when you're commuting or driving somewhere, make a phone call to a friend or
Mhm.
network with somebody or do any of the things we already said, but
Mhm.
just take advantage of that time because if you're just driving somewhere and you're just like staring at the road, I mean, it's good to be safe and concentrated on the road,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you can talk to someone at the same time.
Yeah, I agree 100%. That's definitely the time. Andrew knows me. Like, if I'm not on a scheduled call, I won't pick up because I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm busy or I'm in the woods or I'm learning something or I'm practicing or I don't have my phone on me and it's always on silent. And I
Mhm.
always kind of set aside boundaries, unless it's like my mama calling. My boundaries are like, I won't pick up at this time and this time. But the moment I hop in and I've got that gig up in Traverse City, I'm calling that person I meant to call a year ago, or that person I commented on their thing they posted on Facebook, and I just miss them and want to encourage them. That's when I make the call. So I get thankful when I have those long driving gigs, or I have about a
Mhm.
6 hour round trip, because that's at least, 2 hours there, 2 hours back, that I'm probably accomplishing something that I wouldn't have if I was just sitting at home.
Mm. You mentioned a keyword there, boundaries. And I guess what other, say, boundaries have you set besides, like it sounds like your phone, you've got a great routine on to lock in on the important things like creativity and curiosity. But what other boundaries have you found that really worked for you?
Well, I think first, like with the phone, I always have mine on silent just because to me it's a boundary for just the sake of noise and nuance. Like
Mhm.
when you're hanging out, whether you're in a cafe or you're, getting ready for a gig and someone's phone just fires off. It's to me, it's like, man, that's so rude. Like you seriously, you can't have it on vibrate. You can't have it just turned down a little bit lower. Um, So for me, I just always keep it on vibrate, and when I look, I go, okay, do I have the time and the capacity to serve this person for probably, because you can look if it's, my mom calling, she's probably checking in. Are we doing dinner? You want to come? Are the pups popping over? Or it's an emergency, so I'm picking up the phone. But maybe if I see Andrew's calling me, like if you were calling me at midnight, I would be like, Andrew's calling me at midnight. I'm gonna pick up.
Sure.
Like
Yeah.
something's probably up.
Hmm.
So I want to know, are this really exciting news, or he's gonna let me know aliens are coming to get us, so I gotta go. But
Possibility. Yeah.
yeah, but there's a time where I look and I go, you know what? I mean, I can pick up this phone and say, hey, what's up? Blah, 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 blah. I got to go and let's juggle a call.
Mhm.
So for me, it's like send a quick text, hey, in the moment now, but I'm available at this time and this time today and this time tomorrow. Let me know it works for you and I'll call you or you call me,
Mhm.
So I kind of set the boundaries of like, um, most phone calls I get are not like people like, hey man, you want to hang out and like watch the football game? It's like, hey, will you advise me on my life and my career?
Yeah.
So I don't want to just pick up and just spit fire, just spitball something out at someone. I really want to at least say like, I'll give you 30 minutes or an hour, or
Mhm.
I've got a gig. That's the thing. I almost always say, hey, Friday I'm leaving for a gig up in Traverse City. I've got about a 6 hour round trip. I'm going to be driving from this time to this time, and then driving home from this time to this time. If you want to
Mhm.
talk, I'm available.
Mhm.
So that's a
Mhm.
first boundary that I put up. The second boundary was literally just learning to not people please and just say no.
Mhm.
I always wanted to people please. I think it's being the youngest of five, you know. It's being an artist where I just want to work, I want to create, I want to learn, I want to share, I want to teach. So someone most people are really good at just being getting me to be a sucker and doing events and performing or being part of something. And I want to do that, but again, it goes back to just like the phone calls. I want to make sure that I'm putting my best self forward. And if I'm always spreading myself thin, I'm never going to be my best self for anyone I'm trying to serve, and especially myself.
Mhm.
So learning to kind of put some boundaries on what I do or saying, hey, I would love to do that. Um, uh, I don't have time for that right now, but next year, if you have something in the calendar, I'll make sure I have that Saturday available,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
Um, because you know how it is. You could be sitting at home and you're just chilling, you're in your PJs, and someone calls you like, "Yo, I've got a gig right now. It's 3 sets and it pays 250," and you're like, "Okay," you know.
Yeah.
And like I'm trained to just be like, let's go, but
Mhm.
sometimes you just got to be like, is it worth all the stress and the hassle and all it just to do is the music worth it? Are the people worth it? Is the opportunity worth it? Aside from the money, if there's not a dollar tag to this creativity, um, what is it worth then, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sure any of you have experienced where at times where you made little to no money, probably put money in. Those are usually the best moments.
Mhm.
uh, you know,
Mhm.
musically, I've walked into places being like, we're not making anything. We drove all this time. Where are we? And then we set up and we start playing, and the place packs out. It ends up being the night is fire,
Mhm.
and it was more than worth it. And then you can go and do another gig somewhere else. It's like this pays my week wage, and it's just soul sucking and draining for whatever reason.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's a fine line. So I had to kind of bring that into my life, is being aware of my phone and phone calls, and not just giving people time, but making sure the time I give them is valuable.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I may not answer or reply sometimes for a few days, and there's a reason for that, but I will get to you.
Mhm.
That being said, when I was in my teens and all throughout my 20s, I took every call
Mhm.
because at that point I was, am I moving to LA? Am I going to be in New York? Am I in Nashville? Am I going to be touring as a pop artist? Am I going to be my
Mhm.
own thing? Whoever's calling me, I'm going to answer. Or do they have the key to the next gig or the next person I should talk to? So the reason I have a lot of boundaries now, being that I'm 43, going to be 44, is that I spent 40 years with almost no boundaries with music, art,
Mhm.
and making a living.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
never even paid attention to that. No one ever sat
Mhm.
me down to just be like, listen, calm down a little bit, you know? Um, and I think what really hit me as I'm talking about it is because you and I, Andrew, were spending a lot of time 2020 and 20, well, really 2024, we spent a lot of time together brainstorming. But when
Hmm.
2020 and 2021 hit, for me, it was like a midlife crisis because I had not I wasn't even fully aware that my entire life and identity, my social life, my financial life, my emotional, physical, spiritual well-being, all was from being a working musician touring the world. And then when all of that went away, it was like, whoa, what am I gonna do? Like I remember
Yeah.
being so sad I didn't want to play drums. And it was like I was so sad. Like, oh my gosh, like my entire house of my life that I built was the foundation, everything, the insulation, the
Mm.
electricity, the running water was all making art for a living.
Hmm.
And then when that crashed down, it took me a while to kind of rebuild to decide, do I want to move forward with it as a living or a life or both? I tried to stray away from it, but the more I did, signs of my life kept pulling me back. So I finally surrendered. But what had happened was learning to set boundaries, and it was learning to say no, which I don't advise to everyone maybe right off in the bat, because I think you should be used and abused as an artist to find your way, to find what you like, what you don't like, have those sleepless nights, tons of coffee. Um, but eventually you'll find that center.
Mm.
And I think right now, the first time in my life, I'm finding that center, and it's weird and it's a little uncomfortable.
Hmm.
Um, but the boundaries for everyone will be different. But for me, it was those basic things right off the bat. And then also, um, which we'll probably talk about more in depth, is just the health and wellness of your
Hmm.
life, what you're putting into your body, things like that. My boundaries is that I want the best food I can. I want electrolytes. I want my minerals. I want my supplements. I want good water, good proteins. I want sunlight, fresh air. I want to be able to swim or run around barefoot. I want to be around my dogs as much as possible and feel like a human and not like a musician vampire. Like waking up at like 3 p.m. and then you're back on the next gig. I'm trying
Hmm.
to basically be in disguise and be a normal human being doing day-to-day stuff and being okay with that.
Just running some errands.
Running those errands, exactly, full circle.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of a big part
Mm.
for me of the boundaries and learning to settle in and not just making art itself like a competition or a race that hasn't,
Mm.
hey, I broke through the ribbon, I was the first one, and now what?
Mm.
Sometimes it's best to be the last one because it's humbling, but you still fucking did it and you made it to the end of
Yeah.
the race. And that's kind of where I'm at. It's like, who am I as a person? What's my story? What's my journey? What do I have to offer? I think art, when you're at your best, and I'm not at my best right now, I can tell you that. I'm on and off with that. But learning to be my best is about serving the art. It's about serving, the community and the people and the history of the art. And then it is also about you serving yourself to put out the best art that you can.
Mm.
And learning to say that if you did a good job or it feels like it, that it is okay to be like, hey, good job, buddy. You did it. You had a good gig, or you had a great solo, or you had a cool book, finished it out. Like it's okay to be like it's awesome because I always had that feeling when we're talking about boundaries of like I don't care if I was the top five soloists in 2020, it would have been cool to be the number one soloist. And it's
Mm.
like getting into that mindset I
Mm.
wanted to get away from. It was more about being part of the journey and being part of running that marathon or being nominated in awards globally versus thinking about if you win or not. Like, what is that?
Mm.
Doesn't make any sense. So those are some of my
Mm.
boundaries. I know it's a roundabout way of putting it out there, but those are things that I had to kind of rules and then mental changes allowing
Mm.
myself to have discipline, but also feel okay about how I did and if I felt good
Mhm.
about it and say that's good. I'm learning to just be feeling good about the art I'm putting out on
Mm.
any level that it is.
Wow. Yeah, that was yeah, there's I think a lot of value there. I mean, I'm taking my own personal notes right now. One thing that kind of stood out to me was you kind of made a differentiation between where you are in your art career. Maybe early on, you've got to say yes to all those things and kind of be in this state of chaos in order to eventually come out and make those boundaries. But for someone who is in that very high chaos state, and I know burnout can be very real for especially us as we're always hustling in that 5 to 9 for a lot of us who are looking to launch. Where is there that burnout prevention? I mean, it's probably inevitability, but how do you play with some of that level of chaos, especially when you're maybe young,
Well,
starting
for
out?
me, I mean, just I'm trying to do my best to be as open and honest now because I'm not in my 20s, you know.
Mhm.
I'm approaching my mid 40s now, which blows
Mhm.
my mind.
Yeah.
And I'll say right now, mentally, physically, spiritually, I feel like thousands of times better than I did in my teens or 20s or even early 30s,
Mm.
um, which is amazing. Um, but in my 20s, I didn't have a burnout
Mhm.
until 2020. Like I literally had this like hustle grind from age 14 when I started like gigging. 16, I'm full time. 17, I'm being offered endorsements and sponsors. 21, touring, all over the US. And by 23, 25, um, I'm placed in a top competition out of 5,000 drummers, and like Guitar Center Drum Off was in the
Mm.
top four. Endorsements came in. I got a gig touring in Europe, and then I was off. I was traveling the globe. And then my only goal was not to be, hey, it's January and I'm booked until June. I was like, it's January 2005. I'm booked until January 2006 or June 2006. Like I was
Mm.
booking out a year to 2 years in advance because I knew
Mhm.
I would be hustling and I would have the next clinic, the next drum festival, next audition, the next demonstration, a signature product. I want to get to as many countries as I can, many cities as I can. I want to see the world. I want to eat all the bread, drink all the wine, meet all the people, climb the mountains. I want to jump off cliffs. And I did because that was my goal. My goal was to travel the world through music as an artist, as a student, and as a teacher, and to allow myself to see the world through music and because of music. So for me back then, I was, either vegan or vegetarian, but I was eating tons of processed food or would eat any fast food as long as it wasn't, animal based or so, that was my thinking. I
Mm.
drank 2 to 3 pots of coffee a day. I smoked a pack of cigarettes. I used snus, lots of nicotine, lots of tobacco. I
Yeah, yeah.
loved sweets. I mean, you put in a freaking candy bar or some pie in front of me, some cake, I will motorboat it. I will hammer it down. I
Yeah.
literally used to sleep with a thing of Gatorade and like ho-hos next to my bed, and I would wake up and hammer them back and chug the Gatorade and go back to sleep. That was my life. I was running off of like nicotine, caffeine, and sugar and
Yeah.
processed foods, and then pure adrenaline and pure motivation, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And so I just went. I had blinders on. I didn't know if I was tired or cranky really, or how tired or cranky I was. I didn't know if I was always bringing my best or not. I just had the blinders of I'm going to do music for a living. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to see where this takes me. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be my own thing, or what we say now, my own brand. I
Mm.
saw Dom Famularo. He traveled the world, never brought any gear. He just landed. His gear was there. Got on a microphone, sat down, did an improvised solo. And I saw that, was like, that's my meal ticket. So I went and it was like success, failure, jet lag, stuck in the airport for 2 days, missing birthdays, missing funerals, missing marriages, missing births, missing a class reunion, not caring about class reunions. Like there was a massive sacrifice that to me was like so devout. like
Mm,
devoting your life to Buddha or to Christ, and you're like,
mm,
this is where I'm drawing the line. This is my
mm,
vision. These are my rules. That was my religion, was like, I'm
mm,
doing this. I don't care what anyone tells me. That's what drove me. I was
mm,
not, dude, I had back pain. I had achy joints. I had headaches all the time. I
mm,
had a lot of sleep issues. Um, my relationships with everyone wasn't that great because I was always gone. I was never around. And when I was exhausted. Or like
mm.
finally, after a day and a half of being back from Australia, I finally fell asleep and then I slept for like 24 hours, then you
Yeah.
wake up. So again, there was like no boundaries.
Mm,
And I wasn't aware of it because you look at like jazz musicians, even into like the 90s musicians, what did everybody do? They drank, they partied, they smoked cigarettes, they ate whatever they wanted. People always had crazy hair, beat up clothes. Like it was like the vibe and the culture to almost not take care of yourself.
true. Yeah.
And then it wasn't until I started spending more time in Europe and seeing how people would relax. They love to hike, they love to bike, they love to walk, they have great bread, they have great cheese, the water's superb, but everyone's relaxed. Everyone has time for a conversation. Um, it's okay to have a beer or a glass of wine at noon or two, and then maybe not have anything the entire day. Or there's this whole new like everything's calm. I'm happy that I have this little flat. I live by the mountains. I have a beautiful stream. I'm in a village that I love. It wasn't about if you're a rock star or famous jazz musician. So when I started to see this and seeing how like a lot of the Europeans that I knew personally were not only some of the best artists that I could ever have been put around in my life, but they ran, they jogged, they did sit-ups, they did push-ups, and they would drink beers at night, you know. Um, but they also
Balance.
hydrated themselves. They ate fruit. They had the best breads, like there was this huge balance
Mm,
where I really, really enjoyed it, and it started to trickle over to me, and I started kind of slowing down a little bit.
mm,
And at that
mm,
time in my life, I had no debt, high credit score. All of my finances were completely in a row and really low. The overhead of like what I needed to even make was really low with like my favorite apartment, foods, vehicle, and everything was super dialed in. And I had all of this, like I call it like the LA work, the New York work, the Europe work, where I go out and do clinics and you make a nice lump sum of money. So you can like be like, okay, I'm good for like just from this tour, if I go out for 2 weeks, my bills are paid for the next 4 to 5 months.
mm.
And that's not me being back home teaching or gigging or doing some one-off clinics. It was like I go out and do 2 weeks and I'm good 3 to 4 months. All my hard expenses that if I don't pay, I don't have a car, I don't have a roof, I don't have food, they're covered. And it was like now I have time. And I started to do more fishing, more fly fishing, started to get more into gardening, started to get more into cooking, right? Then I started to find that balance of like, holy cow, I've been on this roller coaster, like jumping out of planes with no parachute for like 15 years.
Wow. Yeah.
And then things started to shift. And then during that time, I started to kind of say no to certain things. There's always that month of like February for a lot of artists where you're like, oh man, what am I doing? It's dark, it's cold, there's no sunlight, I have no money, I'll take any gig. And then, so I would try to avoid those situations. And now I'll say this, like, because I don't know anybody, I don't know their personality, I don't know where they come from. There's a couple scenarios, but if I'm going to be very black and white in the arts world, you're either let's just say you have talent or a gift or potential. We don't even say if you're a prodigy or not. Let's just say the all-encompassing you out there who are the listeners. Let's
Mm,
say you really love art, you have potential, you're working, you're putting your time into it, and if you continue to do so, it might be a year, it might be 20 years, but you could do it for a living, you can do it for a life. No matter what, you can do it for a life. Don't table your art because of a job or money, right? Well, let's say we have artist A and artist B. Artist A has actually some talent, coming from a small town, doesn't know anyone in the art industry, and is trying to figure it out. Artist B, pretty darn good, not showing like the advanced abilities of artist A, but there. But comes from money and lives in Dallas or LA or Chicago or New Orleans, and parents are tied, family is tied, neighbors are tied, colleagues are tied to the art industry.
Mm.
Person B right off the bat is going to have that leg up. It's kind of like a Gladwell 10,000 hours thing. And then what can happen, with almost the same age, same person, same everything, but someone has a leg up. If
Mhm.
you are connected in the industry, it's easier to get into the industry because people can
Mm.
tell you where to go. Not saying it's always the right things, not that you may not be taken advantage of, but now you got money behind you. Your parents can say, go to Berkeley, just go to Berkeley, hustle, get whatever degree, meet all the people, do all the auditions, and then when you're done, if you want to go to LA, we'll make sure your apartment's taken care of, and keep flying to LA and start auditioning and meet people. If you look right now on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, some of the biggest artists that are like, let's say 16 to 26, you can almost best believe there's a few outliers that are not, but most of them come from that platform of money and connections and ties into the arts and the industry. And they get out, they're 21, 22, and they're on a mega tour, but it's a very different journey than like someone myself. I'm small
Mm.
town Scotty, growing up in the country. So I really had to figure out my way. And that way was hustling and saying yes to everything and trying to figure out what is my path, what is my purpose, how do I make money doing this? How does this work? There's a big difference. Um, so yeah, I'll pause there in case you have anything to say or add. So I'll get rambling once we start talking about this stuff forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to balance when you have to hustle because hustle culture just demands an imbalance. So I feel
100%.
like, you know, I like your example of how, the European lifestyle can really bring a reset. And like some of those people you mentioned are some of the best artists, but like maybe by how we would measure success over here would be a completely different evaluation of those individuals and what they're doing versus what someone here is doing. And I feel like actually on our last podcast, which as of this conversation has not aired yet, but it will air by the time this airs, we were talking a lot about external and internal validation and measuring success. And I feel like that mindset is super valuable when it comes to balancing hustle culture, because I think hustle culture is in its nature a validation of it's externally validated, where if you find balance yourself and you find fulfillment from your life and from your art, that's more of that self-talk, or like you said, that telling yourself you did a good job, like I had a good solo, I did this well, like that internal validation is what can bring balance in a world full of imbalance.
100%. 100%. So that's, I
Mhm.
guess, going back for at least my personal experience is that I just was on super hustle grind all the time. And it's good, but it was like you get to the point eventually where you do have a burnout, right? That's kind of the question, like
Mhm.
circling back. It really wasn't until like 2020 where I was briefly married, the relationship didn't go well. At the same time, I had broken my ankle and had 23 screws and three plates put in. The world shut down for 2 years. Everything that I was doing for a living was no longer a job, basically,
Yeah.
at least for a few years. And then this whole new demographic of people, a lot of people that I was teaching and consulting were becoming, content creators. That was like the new thing now. It's like the thing. I'm a,
Mhm.
digital creator. And so that whole world kind of happened, and I'm kind of like decompressing, thinking about what should I do with my life, my next step, how should I balance? I know my biggest way to make money is if I'm playing drums, talking drums, around drums, looking at drums, I'm making money. That's how I pay my bills. But it's also that's what I know to do, and that's a thing that I'm super obsessed with. And at that time, for me, I didn't want to be posting videos all the time. Uh, I just wanted to start enjoying life. 2020 and 2021
Wow.
were some of the hardest years, but it also was like you have nothing to do other than to go fishing, go camping, go foraging, have a fire outside, be with your dogs, go for another hike today, sleep in.
Mhm.
And it was like, whoa, I had a garden that I could maintain every day.
Wow. Yeah.
And I went from like I couldn't have a dog to I couldn't maintain a relationship because I was always gone, to I can now raise tomatoes from seed and finish to them to a full fruit and turn them into a pasta sauce. So that was night and day of what my life was for so long, like just running on fire trying to get to the lake, you know, to like finally being in the lake, cooling down and going, oh man, going for a dip is really nice.
Yeah, yeah. That is really I mean, I definitely feel that with a lot of people. It's like this adrenaline rush to get to almost this finish line, like you said earlier, like it's this race. And something that really stood out to me was when Jake talking about internal balance, and it for the journey versus the destination can really help cool off some of that fire, that angst, that adrenaline from running to, okay, I am running, I am going, but I can enjoy the process no matter how gruesome or good or bad or whatever it is. Having that internal peace within yourself to look around, and some say smell the roses, but I in this case, I'm just saying looking around and not having blinders on could be a huge decompress for some, because at some point, like in your story, life literally came out of nowhere and told you to stop. The roller coaster's done. You're done
Yeah,
now. Get off. And you're like, what is this? And I like, this roller coaster ends. There's an end here.
yeah. And I mean, it's just wild, but it's kind of funny because right now where I live, like I'm looking at the dunes. I live behind Mulligan's Hollow here in Grand Haven, and I have dunes out the west and the south windows and trails all the way through to the graveyard to Duncan's Woods and to Lake Michigan. And it's like in my mind, we're talking about philosophy, like I was always just beelining right to the lake instead of like walking and jogging through the dunes and then
Mm,
entering into the lake. In my life and career. In
mm,
my real life, I'm always hiking the dunes, even when I was a psycho and just, was smoking a bunch of cigarettes and living off of coffee and haven't slept for 2 days, but, making a living. I still would always spend my time in nature. But
mm,
um, now, you know, thinking with the boundaries, thinking about burnout, um, it's one of those things. Some people are really disciplined. Some people have a personality type that are aware of this or themselves in their life. It could be family upbringing. There's a lot of things. But for anyone out there, like if you have the energy and you're willing to take the risk, do it. If for the most part, even if the day comes and you're like, I'm so tired, I do not want to do this thing I have to do today. I'm so angry about it. Go and do it. I've had so many moments where I was like, I'm just gonna bail. I'm gonna bail on this thing. I'm worn out. I'm done. I'm tired. And then I would go and do this event, and it would be the freaking coolest thing I did, and got me so excited and so jazzed. And it was like,
mm,
oh my gosh, I can't believe I was not gonna do this thing I committed to just because I'm so grumpy and I overbooked myself. I didn't take care of myself. I wasn't well rested. I'm burnt out, and
mm,
instead I'm gonna, so
mm,
always kind of go as hard as you can, but there will be a point somehow that'll make you kind of reflect. And
mm,
I'm on like beginning my path on the other side now where
mm,
I'm doing my best no matter what. And I know this isn't how my career will go, but if I just play drums and teach drums in West Michigan and Northern Michigan for the rest of my life, I'm happy.
Mm.
If I'm able to wake up with my pups or see my mom or go fishing, go for a hike, go grab my favorite coffee downtown, I'm happy. If I get to ride my bike or if I don't even have to get into my car for the whole day, I'm happy. And what I'm trying to do is give any advice or ideas to anyone who wants to pursue their life in a creative way and matter. And the best way for me to do that is by hosting events.
Mm.
So for almost 2 years, I've been hosting the Sunday Shakedowns, aka Beer Church at Oddside Ales. And it's not an open jam per se, it's not an open mic per se, but I have, my trio there. I invite out a lot of musicians, and we've built this community where people roll up and we're like, Lauren Allen's here. She's going to throw down. Nate Dill's in the house. He's going to do his thing. Caleb Elton goes rolling up. We're going to get him up and play. Hey, someone says you got to check out, little Danny or little Donnie. Okay, give them a shot. They do a song. You're crushing. Do a couple more. I'm going to go get a beer. Um, and on top of it, we've involved like an art therapy group called Epicenter, which I'm now also working with and for.
Mm.
Another thing to fast forward in a bit. So we bring out a ton of art supplies. We tell everyone the philosophy is breaking bread, so people will bring food and snacks and candies. And we've been throwing a ton of birthday parties there with all of our friends. So we always try to honor part of whoever is
Mm.
around that's always out. We make sure that that Sunday before or after their birthday is their party. So we're rolling out red carpets. And like, man, I was just a couple years ago ready to just be a hermit, and now I've become more social than I've ever been, and literally getting messages on Sundays or Mondays from people being like, this day changed my life and my perspective on their life or the community or decisions they're trying to make in their life. And it's been a really cool transitional place for people maybe who just got married or people who maybe ended in marriage, someone who just moved here, or people who just had kids, because it's all ages.
Mm.
And you don't have to go there for music. You don't have to go there to drink. You don't have to go there for art. You can just go there to hang out. You can go there and promote your business. You can bring business cards. I encourage all the artists that come out to bring their cards and put them up by our tip jar. So with that, I'm trying to do more community building stuff just because the resources I have can build a foundation for all the really cool people to come in. Um, One part of my life is that I always find super creative people. I always discover super creative people, unique people, way cooler than me, way better than me. I find them and then I find how to connect those people with the right people. And I
Mm.
don't make money from that. It doesn't pay my bills. At times, I bet you I've lost gigs or created gigs for someone else that could have been mine, uh, per se, but it's like a thing that I'm just meant to do.
Mm.
And I know that can be a business, but I just feel like that's my purpose.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
where I'm at now is more of that community building,
Mm.
networking, giving people a leg up, giving people advice, being honest, but I'm always going to be optimistic and positive and supportive.
Mm.
Even
Mm.
with answers today, I don't ever want to be bitter or like, don't do that. That's awful. I'll just say this is what happened for me or to me, but do it, you know?
Yeah. Your mindset there was really key at the end, talking, you kind of summarized it wonderfully. That is, I mean, how we approach everything in life is literally our mindset. Our perspective is what shapes the reality we experience. And you're kind of talking about engaging in community and supporting others. And to me, I've gone to those beer church on Sunday, and they're like a really recharging thing to go and be a part of. Like it can really kind of fill your cup up, and it can be a really an activity of recovery. And I think that is part of the balance too, is having some of those things where you're pushing through, going through those times when you don't want to do the thing and you still do it anyway. And that can really drain you in some ways, but you're still, expanding and growing. But we also do need recovery and to recharge in other areas. For you, what ways have you maintained that balance of having those moments of recovery and what activities maybe gave you that recharge, that recovery that you need to keep going and keep pushing.
There's certain things in general, but like one, just something that gets my mind, like people, if there's anyone out there who knows a little bit of what I do, you would think that all I do is music and think about music and play music and practice and drum. And
Mhm.
that was a huge part of my life. But in my day-to-day life, I listen to podcasts and audiobooks because it's not music. It gives my brain time to rest and to breathe. And every freaking time I'm on a podcast, or a book, I get so many more ideas about business and creativity and ideas behind the drum kit. So another thing, like I'm always walking and hiking with my pups every chance we get, even if we quick sneak out somewhere just to run around for 10 minutes. And I love to challenge myself being barefoot, whether it's incredibly hot
Yeah.
on pavement or the sand, or now when it's like 35 degrees and some snow on the ground, I still will go barefoot and try to challenge myself,
Wow.
and I'll do some exercising, different feet and leg exercises while I'm hiking and stretching with the pups and being, what I like to call my monkey toes, because for me as a human, my if I don't have my feet, what do I have? And same
Yeah.
thing with drums. That to me, that's the biggest foundation. So just exercising. But I go to Planet Fitness too. I've been working out, hitting the machines and stuff like that. And I go with my buddy Kevin Cozell, who's an old longtime friend and colleague. And I've been meeting more friends, colleagues, and students or people I'm mentoring. Be like, let's just go work out for a little bit, hang out, get the body going. Um, because for a lot of us creatives, you struggle with anxiety, you struggle with depression,
Hmm.
you struggle with health and
Oh
wellness,
yeah.
tons of self-doubt and self-loathing. But a part of that is because if you're not creating, your brain can be kind of fighting against you. And a good way to turn that around is by exercising, by moving, riding a bike, going for a walk, climbing a tree, go lay out in the sun, go for a swim, do some sit-ups, do some push-ups. If I'm ever having a bad day and being grumpy, I'll just make myself do some push-ups and sit-ups, and I'm like sick immediately, and then I'm like, I can't be mad at myself anymore. Let's move on. Um, and then for me, I more and more, especially these last 2 years, have become absolutely obsessed with cooking. I've always loved cooking, always loved eating. I've always been a health, wellness, nut, meats, a foodie. I love learning how to make everything from scratch with the best, healthiest, tastiest ingredients possible.
Mhm.
And there's nothing I love more knowing that I can break bread and feed people, and
Mhm.
that 2 to 3 meals a day, if I eat 2 to 3 meals a day, I'm preparing them.
Mhm.
And I do it for my pups too. I prepare all their meals, and that just recharges me. Like making pasta from scratch, making pasta sauce from scratch, and taking the time to do it, knowing you have the time to do it,
Mhm.
or while I'm listening to a podcast or while I'm learning an album, making some bomb Italian food from scratch.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so those are things I learned to do. Is it's selfish in a very positive way of learning to take care of yourself. Enjoy the simple pleasures. Like we have running water that can be cold or hot. We have ovens, we have heat. If we didn't, you think we'd be able, man, if you were a creative just a few hundred years ago, think about the hardships you had to go through just to have the time to be creative.
That's a great point. It's never been easier if you think about it that
Yeah.
way.
And it's like it can make you lazier, or you can sit. I have my days where I'm like, oh, I should be filming this and doing that and posting this and scheduling here and da 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 da. But at the same time, it's like I have amenities to keep me hot or cold. Like I can take a shower whenever I want. I can cook food. I can freeze food. I can talk to people in a different city or in a different country. So it's like learning to enjoy yourself, enjoy your life. I've pretty much been alone for most of my like probably last 12 years. out of maybe 2.5 years I was in a relationship. Other than that, it's me and Pegasus, and now me, Peg, and Phoenix. And I enjoy our life, and I enjoy being able to cook food and then walk out and walk around the blocks and see a bunch of ducks and geese fly by and salmon jumping in the river and stuff. Like, that's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard before the saying that if you don't invest in your wellness, you'll be investing in your illness. And I feel like a lot of what we talked about today and things that you're mentioning there, like, are really making those conscious, mindful investments in yourself. Just, allowing yourself to have that mental capacity to be able to create based off of having those balances in the other parts of your life.
Yeah.
Mm.
And it's the same thing too. I mean, if you're a songwriter, the moment you get your heart broken, that's the best time for you to start writing and healing. Like, think of
Yeah.
how many amazing songs come from having true love and losing it. But that comes with living life. I would say one of my true loves is creativity. That's a
Mm.
book that I'm working on, and I have, a publishing deal for, and I'm procrastinating on. Um, but I just love creativity. And people think it's so difficult to be creative, and that is the biggest lie I think there ever could be. Every single human, every single day, I bet you every few hours is doing something creative. It's just, is it art or is it a
Mm.
lifestyle? Is it a conversation? Is it a twist on words or your story of the day? Is it a way that you pay your bill or made money? People are very creative. They just don't think about it. And you can have your health and wellness and your balance and maybe not create everything all the time. And then you can go and have your heart broken and not sleep for a couple days. And all of a sudden you just wrote an EP.
Mm.
You definitely have to live your life to be able to have those things to put into your work, I feel like. And that's how you ultimately grow and connect with others, is that they can relate to what you're putting into your work, and they see that in your art.
Yeah, and I think that's where it's tricky right now with everyone being a digital creator is that, oh man, I forgot who this kid was. He popped up on my feed on Instagram and he's 9 or 10 years old and he posted like a 2-minute drum solo. And it was the slickest, coolest, most mature storytelling drum solo I've seen in years, especially with someone being like 9 or 10 years old. And I watched this video over and over going, that bro's done his study. Like he's reincarnated being. Like he just has to be. This is just
Really?
crazy. And you're at this age right now where you have your tablet, you have your smartphone, you have your laptop. Everywhere you go, you can study and find any information you want. And that's a huge advantage for people to be able to like 12-year-olds and 14-year-olds are playing like they're in their 30s and 40s because they're taking from people in their 30s, 40s,
Mm.
50s, 60s, getting all their ideas, all the notation, all the techniques, and be able to play it, but they don't have the actual story yet. So it's a little scary when you can see a lot of musicians, you go, holy cow, they're talented, or they're doing these cover songs, they're going to have a great career, but they're getting known for being a copycat.
Mm.
And I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but like, man, it would have sucked if I got famous at 14 when I was trying to be a Dave Weckl and a Dennis Chambers, because what I have
Mm.
felt that I need to be that way the rest of my life versus getting up to a point and then crashing, getting up to a point, crashing, and keep like getting those peaks and valleys. And I started to discover my own sound and my own thing and ideas. So we're at a unique time right now with artists because you actually could, let's say we're talking music. You don't have to play gigs. You don't have to do auditions. You don't have to be in band. You don't have to take lessons. You don't have to be in the community band, marching band, jazz band, big band. You don't have to start a band at high school. You can just play covers in your basement, record and produce them on your own and release 10 of those a week. And you could blow up and get 100,000 followers or 1 million followers. But the entire other side of that art, you don't have any idea or experience with.
Mm.
It's like trying to, plant a garden without any seeds or having the seeds and not having any dirt. Um,
Mm.
So it's kind of backwards from where a lot of us came up. Like you just had to hit, you're a door-to-door salesman. Hi, my name's Scott. I
Mhm.
play drums. I want to play drums for you. I want to make money. Okay, next. And you're
Mhm.
booking gigs, doing physical stuff in the community with people, dealing with stage fright, dealing with people that don't like you, playing with a band that sucks, playing with a band that rocks. You know, so now a lot of people who have done that are trying to get popular online. Well, as you
Mhm.
have people that are online that really probably maybe have never even played a gig before, or done like, hey, Andrew, can you be here in 45 minutes? We need you to do 3 sets. And you're like, okay, I give you my best. I'll be there.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
big difference of like those skills of where it's more normal to just show up and be on stage than not.
Mm. Yeah, it's the digital age is affected things so dramatically, and now with AI taking over at a rapid rate over the past year, it's um, I think we're all pretty optimistic about it and find fun ways to use it, but it does require another level of adaptability as an artist to create and find your own uniqueness, because you've got human intelligence versus AI intelligence. Now, I was just at a conference on Thursday. It was it was called Mind Capture here by Tony Lubrinsky, and he had a bunch of people on, and one of those guys was he talked a lot about AI, and he talked about, oh, now you don't have to go and pay someone 30, 50, $100 for this piece of creative. You can just now have AI do it. So that's what people are doing now. I mean, if they need music, they're going to AI. If they need a little piece of graphic, they're going to AI to replace some of this this basic level of art that we're creating. I want to know, for you, and what ways have you used AI, and then overall, what's your optimistic look on the future as we go down this digital era?
Well, it's one of those things when you list like, oh, someone can get graphic design and just use AI. They could get a background song and just use AI. And people are like, oh, you're taking our jobs. You're taking humanity away. It's like, well, it's always kind of been taken away. I mean, I'm these are not real statistics, but let's say out of 100% of professional musicians globally making a living, I would bet 90 to 95% of those musicians globally are doing cover tunes. They are doing jazz standards. They are doing
Mhm.
someone else's music. If you're in a symphony or orchestra or a freaking marching band, you're not doing your compositions, right?
Mhm.
And then from the birth of like Napster and Lars Ulrich lost his mind or whatever, being like,
Yeah.
how can you let people down? We need money. Not we have Spotify, we have Apple Music, we have Bandcamp, we have SoundCloud, we have how many ways to stream music on top of YouTube. So like for the most part, even if there's one famous piece of art, that was only one sale. It's not like there's like billions of sales off of that. I know there's like reprints and blah, blah, but like when you really lock it down, for the most part, most of us artists are making money if we are doing like providing a service or a product.
Mhm.
You know, I have a book that I wrote from my experience. It's digital or physical. Here you go. I have a wedding band and we play weddings. I will play your wedding. You know,
Mhm.
I give lessons online or in person, or you can buy a lesson pack from my website. So you have to have a service or a product. And if you're constantly hiring people to help you for your service or product and you're not making a lot of money, like I don't know any musicians, even if they're doing well, like, and I'm not saying like they're making millions a year. Like they're doing well. They're making 75 to 100K a year. They're doing good, but they're saying most of them aren't taking their money made from music to finance their musical career. They're
Mhm.
doing crowdfunding, crowdsourcing. They're looking for sponsors, endorsements, licensing deals. Like there's all these other ways, or they're working another job so they
Mhm.
can afford their art. Most people do that. I mean, if we're even coming full circle, a lot of people have that 9 to 5 so they can create art or eventually maybe break away from a total 9 to 5 to do more art to pay their bills. So for me, um, I only got a little bit of pushback, and it's from like trolls on Facebook. I was thinking like, man, I haven't put out any merchandise. I really should. The most traction I get online, aside from drumming, is my dogs and my hikes.
Mm.
foraging, fishing, outdoor stuff. So I had one of my favorite pictures of Pegasus, Phoenix, and my mom's dog Zumi in an old van that I had, and they're all standing, posing, looking pretty hard, and it looks like a band photo. And I got it, and it's in the van. So I went into AI and I was like, "Hey," I always talk to AI like, "Hey, it's Scotty here. Like how are you doing? Like building a relationship and go, hey, I have this idea. Here are the three dogs. This is their name. This is where I took it. This is what I want to do. Um, can you turn this into a really cool cartoon? And can you add like the amanita mushroom, a rainbow trout, and this is in a van?" And it'd be like, bloop. All of a sudden, I had that. And then I'm like, "Hey, my dog, her left eye is blue. Phoenix, can you just change that? Okay, now can you format it so blah blah blah?" And then all of a sudden, within 5 minutes, I had my merch. I went and printed out rectangle stickers and circular stickers, and now I have a bag of shirts. The first day I brought out the shirts, I sold 12.
Wow, nice. Yeah.
The only money that it cost me is that I pay for a cell phone service, and I have a cell phone. And I went to Sticker Mule and Sticky or whatever, and I used Dynamite shirts here in Muskegon.
Hmm.
That I paid for that product, but other than that, the whole idea was my idea. It was from my personal photos of my personal favorite little fur beings, and then I had a product. Had I sat down with a graphic designer, and I'm not taking away from graphic designers, but I don't even know if it's worth their time for them to have to do that. When I already knew the vision, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I had a being, the AI being, be able to make it come to fruition for me.
Mm.
And otherwise, I would have been going back and forth with a graphic designer for days, weeks, a month, and then maybe
Mm.
pay a grand, and then pay the 500 for the shirts and stickers. So now I'm 1,500 deep. So now what do I have to charge for those shirts just to promote my brand versus
Mm.
it cost me 400, 500. Now I can charge 25 bucks for the shirt and my costs are covered quickly. So kind of one of those things, like if we're in the Wild West right now of AI, it's worth looking into it for certain things that might save everyone time, everyone a hassle. And, maybe when there's something that you really want a certain way, then that's when you record in the studio. That's when you sit down with a graphic designer. That's when I think it can eliminate, as we were talking before we started rolling, it's like saving time and energy, working smarter, not harder. Um, if you get a cool idea, because I'm sure you guys get this, you're like, "Oh shit, this is going to be awesome." And you can just be like, "Hey, blah, 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 blah." Boom, you got branding done. Save it, put it in the library. If you didn't do that, how long would it have taken for you to get that done? If it was on your to-do list, right? And then find a
Mm.
person and then work with said person and blah, blah, blah.
I think you made a great economic proof there of how the initial concern was, oh, if I use AI, it's going to take away some other jobs and some other creativity and et cetera, et cetera. But you brought it full circle back to the point that when you lower the costs, that you were able to lower the overall input that was needed to get it out when you already had it in your head. Didn't have to charge as much to your consumer. So you're really serving your audience better. You're serving yourself better. You're getting more output with less input. And that's the idea of productivity overall. Productivity is a measure of output to input. So I feel like that in itself brings balance to your life because, mentally, physically, financially, etc. You're able to bring some more balance by not having to spend all of that time and effort and money to get the same result. And I feel like between your daily tasks or brainstorming or even creating, that AI is like you said, the wild west of where we can go from here. And feel like there's a huge opportunity to really take advantage of that because it's here to stay. I think it's one of those things
Oh,
that's
yeah.
not going away. And if
It's
you
not going away. No.
If you resist
not.
you're going to look like one of those articles from like the 1920s about like how the calculator is going to ruin society. Like if we don't know how to do long division anymore, our society will crumble. But
Right.
here we are, right? It's like we might have learned it. I don't know if kids are still learning that, but I feel like how did that benefit us at all? Like I feel like sometimes the challenges that we go through are just not necessary, So, like even back to your example of like we have running water and heat and cooling and all these things. Like you used to have to spend time like finding water and creating a fire and heating it up and heating your home and all of these non-productive tasks. But now you have all that capacity to actually do something. So I feel like AI can really unlock that capacity, and that in itself can bring you some balance and free up, in the parts of your balance of, some of those tasks, survival tasks being eliminated allows you to be more creative.
I agree. And it's, I remember a while back I had a friend and a mentor, and we'd always meet up, and I'm like, I'm overstimulated. I have so many ideas and I'm doing all this stuff and like da 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 da. And he said, humans created a pen and paper, pencil and paper to write everything down and to get it out of your head so you can see it, you can feel it, you can memorize it, you can document it. It's historical now. AI is like that next level because you can sit in and open it up, whatever one you use, build this library, and you can be like, hey, can you rewrite my bio? Hey, I want to have a business plan because I want to do this and this and this and this by this time and make these marks. Boom. Like you can be there and interacting, engaging, and you can even edit. I will edit it at times. And it's like the extremely fast pen and paper, which I still write things down on. I very much love pen to paper feeling and committing that when I'm really working and creating. But to be able to just be a creative and to be able to sit down and you could be watching something on Netflix or Hulu and just pop it open and be like, hold on, I got this idea. I want to do this and this and this. This is what I'm working on. This is where I'm at. I need these loopholes filled. Let's go. It's there. Like it literally gives you like if you're not following your business plan, if you're not creating art, if you're not doing all the things and using AI, then what are you doing? Like it's literally giving you your best foot forward in every possible way.
Yeah, it is. And there's a ton of platforms. Like I've experimented with Gemini, with ChatGPT, with Gronk, with Claude, with Perplexity. There's, and now I'm looking at ways of doing bots and like making agents. And there's all those things are now. I think that like that's the next layer is having these AI little agents do things for you, like come up with inspiration for content or create a weekly newsletter for yourself or for whatever it is. And I think it's a wonderful way to get more and more productive so you can do more things like fishing and swimming and hiking and rolling around in the snow or whatever it is, because we think about how much it would have taken us to do those things prior. It would have, if you would have ever even done it in the first place, you might have not have even been able to accomplish it without AI. So it's making it easier and easier for us to do things and allow us to create our art, not the art that is just demanded by the people who have a few $100s to spend on creative.
Well, this
I
is
feel like
especially, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, off of using AI, in my small business, I've a tool that I use is HoneyBook to manage my client interaction and have a CRM system. And that in itself was already a productivity boost. But as soon as they introduced AI into the tool, between sending follow-ups, collecting on payments, even drafting the emails, pulling together like in my tone with our pricing, how we would approach a sales email, like those things. It's not that I dislike them, but it is a little bit draining at times. Like if I've had a long day and I got to sit there and send follow-ups and draft this email and rewrite it and think and rewrite and just have the AI do that for me, just frees up a lot of capacity for me to work on the things that I do want to work on and to grow the business and help, my ultimate goal, help the musicians in my band get booked for things and make money and enjoy what they do and take away from those administrative things. I feel like that's the biggest thing for AI for me right now in terms of a use case is taking off cost or taking off administrative burden.
Well, I think there's two things. One, any like successful business or successful business human or corporation, they have an assistant, they have a secretary, right? There's like people that advise or have certain things, that filter through booking appointments, following up on invoicing. And when you're an artist making no money, how are you going to afford a secretary? How are you going to afford an assistant? How are you going to afford your bookkeeper, you're an accountant? Like there's so many things. Like if I always look at my life in a pie chart of like not only the time I'm spending, but the money I make and the ways I make it. So there's like live performance, there's recording, there's producing, consulting, private instruction, there's licensing, publishing. Like there's all these little things in this circle, and I could like look at. I mean, if it's blue of how I make a living, let's say playing live music, there's like probably 24 bands, artists that I do work with throughout the year. That's a lot right there. That's memorizing music. That's memorizing people's personalities.
Mm.
That's memorizing how you play to their styles of music, their areas, blah, 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 blah. You still have to get paid from them. Then you book your own stuff. So that means if you're booking your own stuff, what? You're finding your musicians, you're finding the venues, you're sending the invoices, you're collecting the check, you're taking any of the flack if something went bad or getting the praise if something went right. Then, oh, that's right. You have merchandise, you have your albums, you do have your licensing, your publishing, your copyrights. There is so many loose ends to screw up on. And like, if you're doing art for a living, like you, at this point, you have to do a lot of stuff. And speaking from a musician, like, you got to play gigs, you got to record music, you got to make videos, and you still have to
Mm.
book, you still have to invoice, you still have to rehearse, you have to audition people. Oh, that's right, you have to promote, you have to do paid ads. Oh, that's right, the merchandise, getting more merchandise. How much did we make on merchandise? Oh, that's right, I got to run my QuickBooks, I have to invoice, I have to now get the W-9, I have to do the 1099. There's so many areas to just screw up.
Mhm.
And if you can have AI helping you with some bookkeeping, sending invoices, receiving them, blasting out to everyone, hey, here's our gigs for the year, and here's all the details, here's the contracts, here's whatever. Oh man, that's amazing because I spend all my time, energy when I have to sit down and fight through QuickBooks and my taxes and invoicing and all the stuff I don't like doing. But I'm not at a point to hire three different people to do those extra tasks. So again, this could be a really good advantage for us creatives harnessing and embracing this being that could really help us enhance our business so we can be creative and
Yeah,
not have as
exactly.
much stress.
Mhm. Yeah. Do all the things that no one wants to really do. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. Yeah. Wow.
All right. Well, I think this was a very insightful conversation for the modern artist, as our goal is really what's on the cutting edge of what's going on, and part of that is just your mental health and well-being. That's so important nowadays. I think with all of these things going on, all of this noise in the world, to just take a step back and be mindful and to have that balance in your life and find that internal definition of success instead of going out into the noisy external world of validation. But to kind of put a closing thought on that, Scott, what would be, if you could try to boil it down to one single piece of advice to someone that's struggling with this, what would you tell them? It doesn't have to be one sentence, but one thought.
Mhm.
I never really ever have just one thought, but I mean, it just really comes down to, I mean, you know, I don't know everything about what's going on in the universe and life, and I don't know about everyone else, like how they live their life and what they want to do and achieve. But if you have that spark in you, a lot of people don't follow their spark. And you could have a couple sparks. You could have three or four sparks, right? Um, but if you ignore those, your life could end up being dark. And you might make a lot of money, you might make no money, but your life may not have fulfillment, it may not have the light, and it may not give you joy. If you're able to wake up in the morning and be like, I had a good day or a bad day, or I'm feeling good or bad, but you're like, I like my life, that's important. And I think the way that you can feel that is by following your sparks. You don't have to do art, music, being creative for a living to pay your bills, but you can do it for a life. And if you do it for a life, you'll create a life worth living. You'll build
Mm.
community, you'll see the world, you'll understand the world, you'll make a lot of friends, a lot of connections, and you'll get massive life lessons. You know, I mentor people that are down to about 5 or 6 years old, up to 80, 90 years old, and I have people mentoring me that are 8 years old to 90 years old. Living a creative lifestyle allows you to not just look at gender or race or religion or politics or financial status. You get to see life as it is when you are living it.
Mm.
So if you have a calling, follow it and know that it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. But if you ignore it, you'll spend your entire life questioning if you should have paid attention to it, especially on your deathbed. Um, Always try to imagine yourself at the end being like, what regrets do I have? I know if I never followed my curiosity with drumming, oh my gosh, my life would have been so lame. 100%. Like I'm like tearing up thinking about it right now because of the experiences I've had. Um, because I was just crazy enough to pursue drumming
Mm.
as a living and for a life. So that
Yeah.
would be my advice, roundabout way, is
That
to
that's
follow that
incredible
spark.
advice. Love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Incredible. Mm.
Well,
yeah.
uh, I think that brings us to the close here of episode 17 of Rooted the Art Arbor podcast. Very honored to have Scott on today. Great conversation, and we'll have all the links and everything below. Check him out. Check out what he's up to. And when you get that book out, we'd love to have you back on to talk about that.
Ooh, yes,
We
please.
will. I do have the Count Clap Tap book that I co-authored. It's a learning method and ebook and part of an app I did with Andy Schamaker is out. The Gateway to Creativity is literally 10, 15% away. Andrew's even been through some of it and stuff, but it's becoming more of a philosophical book with some notation and all that stuff. So love
Mm.
to come back and get Gavin here in 2026, which is right around the corner.
It's coming up. Yeah.
Yep. All
Yeah,
right. Well, thank you again. And to our listeners, go follow your spark and create something today. All right.
let's do it.
Perfect.
Peace.
Peace.